Hello everyone, I'm Yusuf Dogan Lbhalla from Tennessee 4-H, and I am so excited to have joined with me Lazarus Lynch. He is a New York 4-H alumni and an amazing chef and cookbook author, and he's also a two-time champion of CHOP. Hello there, Lazarus. How are you doing today?
I am so well. Happy 4-H. I'm so excited to be here with you, Yusuf, and to meet you. It's a true honor.
And I'm excited to have you. Well, can you tell me what you're making today?
Well, I'm excited to talk about what I'm making. I'm excited even more to make it. So I'm gonna do a purple cabbage slaw. I love slaw, and I'm gonna throw in some apples, right? Some red apples, some red onion and scallion, and we're gonna toss that in a light lime vinaigrette, and we're gonna top that slaw with our jerk chicken, and it's gonna be a seared chicken breast that's really tender and juicy, and gives it some kick and some spice and some zest, all that.
I love that. Can you tell me
Mm.
what exactly inspired you to be a chef?
Yes, so I started cooking at a young age. Grew up with big family, mom and dad. My dad was from Alabama, and my mom is from Guyana. So I kind of grew up in this melded culture. Grew up in New York City, so I was exposed to a lot of different cuisines and flavors. My dad learned how to cook from watching his mom, and just through the years of learning how to cook. And his specialty was soul food. He loved making soul food, macaroni and cheese, collard greens, ribs, fried chicken, all that. So he opened up his restaurant called Baby Sister Soul Food, and I totally fell in love with it. And so I was like, I think I want to be a chef. And so I went to a high school called Food and Finance High School in New York City, and that's when I started to cook. That's when I really started to cook. And also by going to this high school, I ran into a little program called 4-H that completely changed my life. Now, Yusef, I have a question for you. Where are you from?
I'm from Nashville, Tennessee, and I'm in Williamson. I go to Williamson County 4-H. I've started 4-H 4 years ago, and ever since I joined, I have just had made so many friends and so many experiences. We have public speaking and all these different programs. It's just so fun.
I love
But
it.
well, it's interesting, Lazarus, that you were talking about your cultural background. Your mom being from Guyana and your dad from Alabama. My stepdad's from Morocco, and I used to live there every Friday, my grandmother would make couscous and tagine, and we sit around a table. It was just like a communal little gathering, and it was just a nice little thing to have.
So, Yusef, we're going to start off this recipe. It's very easy with a chicken breast that we're going to season jerk style. Okay, so jerk style is really interesting. Like we talked about cultures, your family half Moroccan. So for me, like I grew up with a lot of Caribbean influence. And so jerk was something that we grew up eating a lot. It's something that I fell in love with from a young age. And it tends to be spicy. But we're going to use a chicken breast, okay? And there's no bone in here, but just skin on. And I'm going to transfer that to a bag. Chicken breast tends to be leaner. It tends to have a lot more protein as well. Now, I'm personally like a dark meat person. I love the thigh, but we're going to actually keep the skin on of this breast so that when we cook it, it retains the moisture. We can always remove the skin after we cook it, but I like cooking it skin on to help it stay moist.
I
So we're going to
never,
season it.
yeah,
You never thought, go ahead.
I never even knew that about the skin. I just like the skin because it tastes good. No one in my family likes skin on their chicken for some reason. I'm like, you better keep that skin on the chicken.
I'm a
It just
skin
tastes so
on
good.
person too, but we're talking about health today. So we can cut back on the skin, but we can use that skin to give us flavor and to give us moisture. Okay, so we're gonna season this with our jerk spice. Now this is a very easy spice rub. We've got some allspice in here. We've got some garlic powder, and we have some brown sugar. Okay, and then to that, we're gonna add a little bit of salt and pepper. Jerk is sort of a preserving technique that was brought over from the Africans to the West Indies. People who lived in the high mountaintops were known as the Moor people, and so they needed to preserve their food, and the jerk was a way to preserve the food. Allspice is actually a berry, and so it does give the jerk a very sort of like woodsy quality and flavor. We're not going to smoke our chicken today. We're just going to sear it. So once it's been covered, oh, I'm going to also add a little bit of oil.
So, what is the cultural significance of this dish? I think you said that it has its roots in Africa.
This is a very important dish to me because I love my culture and I love my food. And eating healthy doesn't mean that we eliminate our culture. It means that we get to redefine it and we get to reintroduce maybe techniques that are from different parts of the world to allow our cultures to maybe be healthier, but also be delicious. So we're still gonna do some jerk today, but we're gonna use a lighter chicken breast, which is leaner. And this is going to marinate in our spices for at least 2 hours, up to 24 hours, okay? So we'll come back to that.
Do you have any advice for people who want to eat healthy but only have frozen or canned foods?
Absolutely. I think that there's like such a misnomer with using frozen foods or using canned foods. The thing about frozen foods like vegetables or fruit is that they are actually packaged as soon as they're picked. So when they're harvested, they're immediately frozen and they're fresher. They can be as nutritious. The only thing that I would caution is the sodium inside of these canned products. So for example, like canned beans, if I buy canned beans from the store, I'm gonna rinse those beans before I cook with them, just to help eliminate some of that salt. So this is our purple cabbage slaw. And I love the color. Now, I know we're in 4-H, so if it were up to me, we would do a green cabbage, but I'm gonna tell you why we're gonna use purple cabbage and not green cabbage today. Our red cabbage has lots more vitamins. Like it's something like 10 times more vitamins, more antioxidants. So this is the purple cabbage that we're using. And to that, we're gonna add in our apples. Now, I love apples. Love, love, love apples. This is our purple onion. I'm also staying again in the sort of family of color.
Right.
I'm just gonna.
I was about to ask you that about colors. I learned when I was younger from this PBS Kids show, and it was the best way to stay healthy is by eating a wide variety of colored foods and like carrots and things like that. So, what colored foods do you think are the best to stay healthy?
Green, like 4-H. Eat your greens, your dark greens. The darker the green, the better it is for you. Eat your broccoli. Eat those green grapes. I'm going to use some lime today. We're doing a lot of green. There's a lot of green on me, in our kitchen. It's all about 4-H and it's all about the green. So the more greens we can get in our bodies, the healthier our lives will be. We're going to add some green to this slaw. We're going to use a little bit of scallion. Check out the scallion. I've cut it on a bias. Now, a scallion has 3 parts. You have the stem, the little hairy part. We have the white part, which is like a third, and then we have 2/3 of the scallion, or the green onion, as some people call it, which are the green parts. And the green parts actually have a lighter onion flavor than the white parts. So we just want a sort of light onion flavor. We don't want it to be super assertive since we have red onion in there. So now, Yusuf, I'm gonna add one final touch. A little bit of cilantro. I love cilantro. Love cilantro.
Cilantro is a must in my mom's household. She says that it makes everything taste better.
Yeah, I'm gonna just add a little bit of cilantro. I'm gonna save the rest of our cilantro to garnish the top of the slaw. Okay, now this is, I mean, honestly, Yusuf, I'm getting excited already just looking at that, but we're not done. We gotta make a vinaigrette. Love vinaigrettes. I personally love vinaigrettes. Oh, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna just slice this lime. Yusuf, I heard you're a farmer.
You could say I'm a farmer. I have a little business I called Yusuf's Hatchery, and I started it 3 years back. And the way I got the chickens is by the 4-H chick chain program. And so in our county, they gave us the option of 12 or 20 chickens. So I got 20 chickens.
What?
And
20 chickens?
Right?
That's a lot of chicken.
It was, and I did not know how much noise they made. And they stayed in our hallway for a few weeks, and while we raised them, and eventually, after a year or so, we were having eggs, and we had more eggs than we knew what to do with because we didn't have to go to the store anymore. And so we started Yusuf's Hatchery, and we started selling eggs to local people and some local businessmen, my neighbors at my mosque, community centers. So Lazarus, I know that you had a little project with food insecurity. Can you tell me about that?
I did have a project with food insecurity. So in 4-H, I was introduced to a program called the World Food Prize. And the World Food Prize is an organization that was founded by Dr. Norman Borlaug. And his vision was to bring fresh food to the world and to end food security. And that was the first time in my life, I was probably a sophomore in high school. That was the first time, Yusuf, in my life that I ever thought about food insecurity. And I started to think about it and I thought, wow, I actually understand what this means. I think a lot of the thought that I had before was like food insecurity meant people living in, countries where there's like not a lot of fresh running water. And that is absolutely not true. Like food insecurity can look like, a neighborhood in America. It can look like a community or a county. And so for the first time in my life, I was asking questions like, why is there food insecurity? There's more than enough food in the world to feed everybody. How come people are not getting food?
Mm-hmm.
And that experience led me to asking those questions. And I wrote an essay about that. And then a year later, I ended up in Beijing, China. And I was there studying food insecurity and working with scientists and PhD students. It was like well over my head. But I'm so grateful for that experience because what it did is it taught me that food security is something that we can change. It's something, and that's a very empowering message. That's why 4-H is so empowering, because it gives us agency to make change, right? We can see the problems around us, but we actually can find solutions. So for our vinaigrette, we're going to add a little bit of honey. Now I'm adding about a teaspoon of honey to that.
There's salad dressing and then there's vinaigrettes. Please, what is the difference?
So the dressing part has like a thicker fat to it. So sometimes that means mayonnaise based, something creamy. It tends to have a little bit more fat in it. So a vinaigrette is a little bit lighter of a dressing. So we've added salt into our lemon or our lime juice and our honey. And now we're just gonna slowly stream in or drizzle in our olive oil. Now, I like to use an extra virgin olive oil. Now, you can use any other kind of oil. For example, you can use a avocado oil. You can use a peanut oil.
Now,
those are what we call neutral oils.
So Lazarus, I have a question.
Yes.
Do you think that eating healthy means that we have to give up good foods like macaroni and cheese and fried chicken? Because since the pandemic started, I have been trying so hard to stay healthy. I started a little cooking Instagram page. I made my own tuna sandwich recipe, and I'm just going to say it's the best tuna sandwich recipe there is, probably. Maybe, I don't know. I've also been making cakes and cheesecakes and pineapple upside down. Just a lot. I've been making a lot of cakes.
I think that is the misconception when we think about healthy eating. Healthy eating is just one component of a healthy lifestyle, and it's a very important component. But if we're working out, if we're sleeping well, if we're moving our bodies, if we're giving our heart, good health and activity, and we're keeping our blood flowing, then you can kind of afford on the food part to sort of have those things that you really love. I love a good piece of fried chicken, but I also will eat that with a big bowl of kale, a salad that I make. So it's really about balance. We can have all of it just with balance. So I'm tossing this slaw together, Yusuf, and actually our slaw is pretty much done, but I'm gonna let it sit because the longer it sits, all those flavors are gonna meld together and it's gonna tenderize. It's almost gonna cook the vegetables without cooking them. Mm-hmm. It's gonna soften up. You ready to make some chicken?
Yes, I am.
Yes.
I've been eyeing that chicken for the longest time right now. I want to see where it goes.
So our chicken breast has been marinating at least 2 hours up to 24 hours. Okay, so overnight. And when you take it out, you just smell it. We're gonna cook this on the skin side down first, okay? In a skillet over medium-high heat, a little bit of olive oil, maybe like 2 teaspoons worth. And we're gonna drop that in. Do you hear that? Can you hear that sizzle?
Mm-hmm. This chicken stays on for 8 minutes, right?
Exactly. So about 3 minutes on one side, 4 to 5 on the other side, and then it has to rest. So that's a really good color. The sear just means you want that color, you want that brownness, right? That's crust. That feels really good. Now it's getting a little smoky, but that's okay as long as my fire alarm doesn't go off. I think that's okay. I'm going to turn my heat down just a little bit. So when you flip the chicken, you want to start to control your heat so that it just doesn't brown so quickly on the other side. We really want this chicken to cook through. Mm-hmm. Now, how do we know our chicken is cooked? I'm going to tell you. Now, I know because I'm a professional and I've been doing this for a long time. But you can use a thermometer, a digital thermometer. I love a digital thermometer. And we're going to use the Fahrenheit temperature. And when you insert the thermometer into the piece of meat, you do this off of the heat, not on the heat, so you don't get a false read. So 165 is what the internal temperature of our chicken should be. For things like beef or pork, 140 to 145. But our chicken needs to be 165 to be completely cooked. Now, another technique, yes.
That reminds me, you just said beef and pork. Now, what if someone wants to try this at home and they don't have chicken? Do you think they could still do this recipe? And what would the health differences be?
Absolutely. Great question. If you don't have chicken breast, don't panic. You can use cauliflower and jerk that. You can use eggplant and jerk that. You can even use like sweet potatoes or squash and jerk that. And here's the one that I really love. Ready? The mushroom. The portobello mushroom. Love a portobello mushroom. You can treat it as you would a piece of steak, a piece of meat. You know, you can season that up, you can marinate that, and you just cook that over a flame. And actually, it takes less time to cook that. And then you let that cool, slice that, put it on top of your slaw. Now, Yusuf, as our chicken keeps cooking, I'm just going to do one more toss on our slaw. Now, you can see that lime vinaigrette has just kind of broken down this cabbage. Cabbage has lots of water in it. So the longer it kind of sits in here, the more it will wilt and break down and go from sort of that crunchy sort of texture to like crunchy and easy to chew. Okay.
Lazarus. So,
yes.
While we're doing this, do you have any tips on ways that you can make a dish healthier? Because I am so curious and I'd love to bring this back to my 4-H programs. So do you have any tips?
I do have some tips. So one tip is to consider the kinds of ingredients that you're working with. So for example, if you can buy something that is maybe that has less fat or that has lower sodium in it, for example, like chicken stock, you know, even things that maybe are pre-made, but that you can buy a low sodium version of that thing, I would opt for that. The other thing is if something has full fat, go for a 2%, go for a 1%, go for a non-dairy option. I love coconut milk. It lives in sort of my culture and in my blood. I cook with it a lot. I love to eat things with coconut milk. I love pouring that over rice or over a salad. Now, Yusuf, what I'm going to do is, this is like a very chefy thing of me. I'm going to stand up this chicken breast so that the sides also get brown. So the searing helps to lock in that moisture. So once we've sealed one side and we flip it and we seal the other side, and we've gotten it nice and brown, all of that juice is locked into our chicken. Our chicken's ready. So what we're gonna do is, before we even plate, is we're just gonna rest this on a plate. Okay, I've got a plate here, and we're gonna transfer that, and we're not gonna do anything but just let it rest. Now, I'm gonna take a piece of foil and cover that in a second, and that foil is gonna help create steam, and it's also going to help continue to cook that chicken just a little bit. When we cook our chicken, we wanna let it rest half the time that it cooked. So if we cook for 10 minutes, how long should it rest?
5.
Exactly, 5 minutes.
Why?
So, because when you allow the chicken to rest, you're bringing down the temperature, and it gives it enough time. That 5 minutes gives it enough time to sort of take all those juices that are running around in the meat and kind of slowly come back together. If we cut it too soon, then all of those juices will run off on our cutting board, and that's not fun for anybody, right? So we're gonna take our serving platter. Now this is a green serving platter for obvious reasons, Yusuf. Okay, our nice serving platter. And I'm gonna take some of that slaw. I want a little bit of everything. So that goes right in the center of our plate. Now, the thing I learned in culinary school is that you wanna keep the edges, keep a lot of space in the edges, and that just makes it look a little bit fancier. But let's see, I got some apple in there. So chicken breast, I've got clean hands. Now look, I'm gonna take our chicken breast and I'm gonna slice it sort of a fancy way. So I've got these big chunks. Now, the other reason I like to do big chunks of chicken is so that it's juicier, okay? Now you can see I'm gonna spread that out just so that you can see how moist and delicious that is. Now for this recipe, I really only need maybe 2, okay? And I'm gonna give a taste test, Yusuf.
All right.
That is dynamite.
Yes, it looks so good.
It's seasoned beautifully. Now, Yusuf, the other thing I really love is all that juice on that plate. We don't throw that down the drain.
Spritz it on there.
Yeah, that goes right on there.
Right.
Okay. So this is kind of like a lunch thing. It's kind of a brunch thing. It can sort of be a breakfast thing. It can certainly be a dinner thing. But here's the truth. We did a couple things today. We kept our culture. We were authentic to the food that we love. We didn't compromise on any flavor. We have balance in this dish. We have acidity. We have some good healthy fats, our olive oil. We have our aromatics and our spices that we used on our chicken, right? We also have the color, right? This plate is not only colorful, but we have the purple cabbage. We kept the skin on that apple so that we're getting all those good flavonoids. Our chicken breast is giving us protein, but it's also leaner than perhaps the chicken thigh or even the drumstick. So this dish represents to me a celebration, a paradise of health and deliciousness. And this is something I would serve in my 4-H club. I would serve that and I'd feel good about that. I'd serve it to my family and my friends and feel good about it. And I would eat it every day and feel great about it. And my body would be really appreciative too.
I'm definitely going to try this recipe and post it on Yusuf Cooking for sure. Well, thank you so much, Lazarus, for joining me today. I had so much fun making this recipe and I cannot wait to try it at home. And for all of you guys, thank you so much for watching. And if you'd like to get this recipe, be sure to go to 4h.org.
Bye, Yusuf. So nice to meet you. Stay healthy.